Welcome to Simple Kicking with your host, James Hairston.
Thomas Morstead, you don't need an introduction, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Because in the special teams lounge where we hang out and talk about kicking and punting, your name's been brought up a time or two.
Well, that's because I'm old. Been doing it a while.
Yes, you are old, but you're seasoned. And it's kind of like, I don't know, does cheese and wine both, ripen with older age?
I don't know. I'm not much of a wine drinker, but I've heard the analogy, and I'm cool with it. That's the goal, is to get old. And, I'm having more fun doing it now than I've ever had. It gets more challenging as you get older. Everything is constantly changing. And, it's a lot of fun. And I think as you go on, if you really love it, it's something that you just, every year is really special. So, anyways, it's the whole thing's been a blessing, and it's been fun to be a part of the kicking community for as long as I have. I feel like I've been able to work with a lot of young guys, people that are passionate about kicking, punting, snapping, and I know it's cliche, but it's one of those things I always told myself I'd try to, make things better and help people along. And anyways, it's been a good ride so far.
The topic of today's discussion is going to be about that ride that you've had, because it's rare. But I've said on this show before, the Special Teams Lounge is a place for us to come and hang out and to learn from each other because of the central message, and I will start it and you will fill in the blank. What you give
will grow. What you keep, you lose. That's the second part of that.
What you keep, you lose. I learned that at LSU from Thomas McGahee, who is now the special teams coordinator at the New York Giants. I confirmed on a text message that he didn't come up with that he learned it from the same guy that you learned it from.
Very cool. Yeah, that's Frank Gans Sr. It was an awesome experience my senior year of college to just have a year with him. That was at a time that I was, no knock on anybody else previously, but I was really didn't feel like I'd had the greatest college experience when it comes to the I just knew there was more out there. And when Coach Gans came along my senior year, it was just an awesome experience. Fell in love with him within 10 minutes of meeting him. And he impacted me at a time in my life when I was still very formidable. And, I was looking to be led, and couldn't have asked for a better coach, mentor, friend. I kind of feel like he was a blessing to everybody that's ever worked with him or played with him, and anybody that actually had a personal relationship with him. We're all kind of like a fraternity. You either played or coached with Frank Gans, like that's pretty special. And I don't know too many people now that have had that experience, but I remember my rookie year, every week somebody would come across the field and introduce themselves to me because of that connection. So it's pretty special.
And that connection now 12, 13 years later is still thriving, and I'm sure it'll happen for the next couple decades as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, people that were mentored by Coach have a lot of sayings and things that that still hold true in their lives. And I think that's why it's so special. We all kind of like use a different language. It's kind of like getting back together with your college buddies and you all say the same dumb jokes and they're still funny because you kind of go back to that time. We all had that with Frank, and we all knew it was special when we were having that experience, which that's rare for young men at that age to know how good something is when it's happening. That's why it was special. So very grateful forever for that experience.
I sense a lot of gratitude that you have, Thomas.
Yeah, I would say that's one of my core pillars in my life. Anytime I'm struggling, or whether it's physically, maybe you're dealing with a tweak, or maybe you don't feel like you're grooved in, and you're not 100% confident. If I can pull myself out of that hole, and recognize that it's happening and acknowledge it, I just always go back to gratitude. It's a great place to live, for a number of reasons, but maybe you're not feeling confident, and you remind yourself of how the 19-year-old you that was a walk-on, that was getting crapped on, would do anything to have the opportunity that I have. Just taking yourself back and reminding yourself of your, the true passion that's underlying and can be forgotten sometimes. So I try to do that daily, to where I don't kind of get in the hole. And I think that's been probably one of the reasons for just a pretty high level of consistency over time.
For me personally, man, like, had a coach tell me about 5-6 years ago to start writing in a grateful journal on a daily basis. And
Sweet.
It's really cool to look back at your life and the things that you're grateful for, because some people call him Jesus, God, higher power, whatever. That's how I find God is communicating to me. And, in your career, we have statistics to look at, but that doesn't tell the full story about you, dude.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm not sure what specific statistics you're talking about, but, that's very nice of you to say. The whole thing's just been, the whole journey's been outstanding. I don't know what else to say. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, man. Well, the reason why it's been wonderful is, that consistency that you've had on the field. And there's a couple of guys that I was, just frivolously searching for questions, because here is Thomas Morstead, that is a total rare occurrence to cross paths with you. And there was actually an NFL guy. He's a rookie punter that is up at Kansas City, Tommy Townsend. And, as I was DMing with him, he said, I don't really get to chat with, fellow specialists that much, especially in the NFL level. And a question that he brought up was just your mental preparation. Obviously, we talked about kind of your gratitude and who you are as a guy, and we'll get into more of that later. But is there anything that are tools in your toolbox that, have recently worked for you on the mental side of the game?
Yeah, I mean, we could do 10 podcasts on that one question, I think. I think some general philosophies that have been good to me are, like we talked, gratitude. I think one of the mindsets that I had from a technical aspect that has really served me very, very well. I was an engineering major in college. That's how I got into SMU. I got an engineering scholarship to go there. And some of the principles I learned in just basic engineering are things that have carried me technically. Things like the more variables, the more error. My punting motion is our young punter, Blake Gillikin, who's in with us this year, said that one of his buddies asked him, about my technique. And he said, he's so plain and simple that it's unorthodox. And so I thought that was pretty cool, because that's kind of been my goal technically, is the less moving parts, the less things you can screw up. And so, and look, that I've been fortunate to have a 37-inch inseam. You don't, not everybody has that long levers like that. But I think I lost my ego a long, long time ago, and that's been great for me. I remember Frank Gans telling me, he said, your A ball is what's going to get you the looks, but hitting your B ball every time is what's going to keep you a job forever. And I never forgot him saying that. And so that's really what I try to do, is I try to hit a lot of B pluses And when you do that, you very rarely have, D's and F's. And your little 5.0 second tracker. I don't get many of those anymore. But every now and then I'll surprise myself. But if I can live in that 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 range with balls in the corner, I feel like I can do it as long as I want.
And you do drop bombs in the bucket between the boundary and the numbers, really, and that is difficult for an aggressive return unit that league wide is only getting more and more have more of an appetite for gaining yards on punts. Dude, I don't know if you've seen this, but last time I checked, punt returners, at least at the college level, they fair catch balls that are inside the 10 regardless. On Monday night, Buffalo returned a ball caught on the 8-yard line for 24 yards, and it was like a 4-4 hang kick, man. Like, is that what you're kind of feeling and seeing in the league now as well, the aggressive return?
Yeah, I think you have to just guard against what other teams do. I think Kansas City was a few years ago started to let their guy basically have the green light to do what he wanted. And, I think punters have gotten so good at pinning teams deep. And sometimes it's not even about the yards. It's about just the opportunity for a play. So, and that's kind of how I think about my job. I've always tried to have as high a net as possible. But, especially with our crew that we have now down in New Orleans with our kicker, who's been outstanding, Wil Lutz, and our punt returner, Deontay Harris, and our just core group of players. I feel like if I don't let the other team have a chance, or if we don't let the other team have a chance, and then the other team gives us chances, it's going to be a good recipe over the course of time if you just look at the kind of field position differential, and that's won us a lot of games in the past few years. So, like I said, it's kind of you got to check your ego, and coaches don't always tell you exactly what the goal is. Obviously, you'd love to hit a 60-yard ball out of bounds every time, but that's a little bit of an unreasonable world to live in, and so you kind of have to have this computer in your brain that's hedging bets constantly. How aggressive do you want to be? What's the point of the game? And who's the returner back? What's the coach's mentality across? And I don't know that there's an algorithm that you can put all that information into, but I do think there's a bit of my brain that thinks that way, and I can't always tell you why I get to the answer of how I want to do it, but it makes sense in my brain of kind of me being as confident as possible. And so that was a really long answer, but anyhow.
I've heard longer. By the grace of God, and this is going to intersect with the conversation we're having, I ran into another SMU pony, one Bryson DeChambeau, 10 days ago.
Very cool.
And it was so cool because it kind of fits into this conversation a little bit. This is what you two have in common. Unorthodox, plain, and simple swings. And get this.
Meatheads in the gym.
Meatheads in the gym is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that inseam. However, another SMU educated, I don't think he was engineering. I think he was physics.
Yeah.
But he responded to my question, and I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you trust yourself in those crunch time situations? And he said, and he closes his eyes and he's clenching his fists and he is accessing all the files in his computer between his ears. He said, look, dude, I have a competitive advantage because I can repeat my swing. I have a competitive advantage because I put the most force into the ball. And then the third thing that stood out to me the most, and I'd love for your response and your thoughts on this, and this is really interesting, I have a high EQ, meaning emotional, like he is aware of his emotions. So if you were sitting there with us and he was eating, I think 3 peanut butter sandwiches and like 3 cookies with like protein powder on them, what would you respond if we were all in a round table hanging out together?
Look, I have heard very few athletes talk about emotional intelligence. That is a huge, huge thing for me personally. You've got me geeked out even more now to hopefully meet him one day. Look, I'm not one of these crazy fanatics with anybody. I think everybody's just another person. But he is somebody that I've had a lot of people tell me, man, you guys would love to just be a fly on the wall and listen to you guys talk about your crafts together. And I've taken a lot of notice of him over the past few years, obviously. And I do think there's a lot of similarities, definitely unorthodox with my training as a specialist back in college and still unorthodox with my training. And he's a guy that, man, it would be really cool to meet at some point.
This is Thomas Morstead, the punter for the New Orleans Saints, and we're talking kind of just hanging out. I don't really know exactly where this thing is going, and I just know where it's not going, which is great, which means I'm on target. Back to Bryson, the 3 emotions that are key for him in terms of his competitive advantage is impulse control, which is if a bad shot happens and he told me, look, I'm in the rough or whatever, and I hit a shot that obviously I don't have control over, I have the ability to not get angry and let that anger affect me negatively. However, if I do get angry, I have the ability to flip it and allow it to help me. The second part that I want to talk to you about in moving from the EQ is, and this is the advantage you have that he specifically brought up, time. He said, I know that I'm going to be successful, and he brought up a poker example, saying, if I play the game long enough, eventually I'm going to win. He has that abundant mindset where there isn't a end point to his career.
That's pretty powerful. Well, as far as the impulse control, I'll go back to that first. I found out probably towards the end of my rookie year that I need to get viscerally emotional to play my best. Doesn't matter if it's anger, sadness, elation. What that does for me, I would say impulse control is something that I would be very good at, and sometimes I'm a bit of a robot, and I need to, if I can just feel something emotionally, like I said, it doesn't have to be good or bad, just needs to that'll get my juices flowing, and it kind of takes my mind out of what I do. And so that's pretty cool. And another kind of way of putting that is a Frank Gansism, one snap and clear. You can't let last snap affect the next snap, good or bad, because that happens. And then what was the second piece there? Was the
time example, like playing like longevity is a distinct advantage that he has.
Yeah. Look, I think there's nothing, that's a different game, right? That's a truly individual sport. You don't have a general manager or head coach making decisions, but I would say this, that, I know that over the course of time, whether I've had a good start or a bad start, that over the course of time, there are going to be things that happen statistically, right? And sometimes you have a bunch of going in short punts and your average is really low, or you got burned on a huge return on a great punt, things that are kind of out of your control, or you had a shank and it was just a horrible punt. Guess what? It's going to happen. And I've been fortunate enough to actually go through it and see the ability over time for those things to even out, to be able to relax, because it is hard the first time you experience it. because people press. And look, everybody does that to some degree. I don't care how much experience you have, but when you can lean back to those times, you already have confirmed validity that it's just, you just got the same old bell curve, right? And there's going to be a big chunk of your punts that are in this middle section, and you can have a few outliers either way. And I guess the best way for me to think about it is like the real you is going to shine over time, however shiny you may be or not shiny. But it's going to, it's going to even out over the course of time. And so I dig that. That's really cool.
You can learn so much, right? And I think that goes back to what you give will grow, because I preface, even with you or anybody I reach out, like, hey, if you're down to do this, cool. And if you're not, no big deal. And for people to open up, you just never know what you can learn just by helping somebody, right? And I just think that's So I went to a high school called Jesuit in Dallas, and there's a lot of Jesuit schools in New Orleans. They call it Jesuit. But at all these Jesuit schools, the motto is men for others. And I think you definitely fit that mold. I have an old memory where I saw you at a Coles camp, and you were nice to me, and you gave me a pointer, and I was like, wow, that was really, really cool. And, you've done Super Bowl media days, and you've won Super Bowls, and here you are with Little Simple Kicking, hanging out, and we're learning together.
I appreciate what you're saying. I think I had a lot of people over the course of my life pour into me at different points in time that had nothing to gain from me at all. And I think I recognized that fairly early. And I just think it's a cool thing to be remembered by somebody for doing something that doesn't take much skin off your back, or even if it does. But my point is that, like you said, you don't know when those little moments, like how big of a thing they can be for people. And, I just remember, I haven't been paid by Jamie Cole for a decade now. I just said, no, when I get up there, I want to just go work with those guys. I feel like I've already been given so much. And honestly, I feel like the guys that are going to make it are going to make it, because they're going to have that mindset. They're going to figure it out. They're going to love it so much that they're not willing to quit. All those pieces that come into play. And so, and that comes same. It was funny that even the feeling of like, hey, I could be helping some kid at a camp that's going to take my job at some point. And I think whenever my time's done, it's going to be time anyways. You know what I mean? So I've never worried about that. And I think it's a really cool thing to have a legacy of helping others and sharing insights with people that are trying to be where you're at. Like that's like the most awesome compliment, I think, when a kid is looking at you. I remember looking at certain people like that, and they're just, wow. They've got this grateful feeling that they're just, and you have such an awesome opportunity to make an impact, because they are like a sponge that's got not one bit of water in it, right? They're just going to soak everything in. And that's really a really cool thing. And so, I've definitely over the course of my life just said yes to a lot of things, which sometimes gets me in over my head a little bit, but it's, doing things like this. I said yes to this, not because of some, previous connection or personal relationship. It was, I see what you're doing. I see how much you love it, and you are making a positive impact in our world of kicking and punting. And I think there's going to be people that use your stuff and it's going to rise the mass, right? And so, like, that's really cool. And I just kudos to you for persevering. And it's honestly, it's been really fun watching you get this thing off the ground. So that's why I said yes to doing this.
Well, I am grinning from ear to ear, and I'm really oozing with gratitude. And I feel like my 7-month-old child when she sees this little stuffed giraffe, Gerald, in the next room. I'm very grateful that you said that, man. And this is the reason why, I do what I do is because of, honestly, trace it back to what Gans said to some guy down the road, and it filtered its way playing telephone to Thomas McGahee. And I'm just like, look, I have no end game in this. I have no idea where it goes, but all I know is that it will grow. And like you said, it'll raise the masses. I could probably spend hours with you, and I purposely keep these things, short because there's too much to digest, especially from conversations like this. But as we finish the podcast, and hopefully we'll be able to do this, down the road, I want you to talk about what you're doing charitably off the field and the recent book that you co-authored with Sean Jensen, because a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are in high school and they have anxieties and they have fears, but they also have hopes and dreams. And your story is applicable to those guys. It's applicable to really the entire audience. So, for a couple minutes, talk about your foundation, what you give will grow.
Well, the foundation's been going for a while now. It's been an awesome thing to run. It's a heavy burden. When you have a 501c3, the IRS doesn't get a cut of that money. So there's a lot of diligence that's put into that. We've been able to do a lot of awesome things for people in need in New Orleans, and it's been more of a blessing to me than anybody. When you get to see people that are going through things, connecting families that have kids with cancer, connecting kids together with each other that no one else knows what they're going through. We did over $1 million in book supplies or school supplies for kids after the flooding 4 years ago. We've been able to be really reactive to needs. So it's kind of a unique foundation, right? It's not the American Cancer Society or American Heart Association, right? We've been able to not have a lot of red tape, and if there was a need that we felt like, hey, we can move the needle here, we've been able to do it. So that's been really cool to swoop in and make an impact in a lot of different areas. And for me, honestly, I know people probably don't like to hear this, but I feel like it's an obligation. I think everybody loves the idea of somebody just doing good things because, they're just that wonderful of a person. And look, it feels good to help other people out. There's no doubt about it. There's the selfish piece to it. But, I've made over $30 million punting a football. That is bonkers. And, I think it would be wrong to not try to do some other things. And it's not just with your money, right? It's any resource that you have, right? So for people that feel like they want to do things or they don't have a place, you have your time, you have your heart to put into something. And I just feel like it's an obligation to do it. There's a lot of need everywhere, but especially in New Orleans. So it's been really, really good. And, it's great for somebody that it's easy to get your feet off the ground, living in the world I'm in. And when you do things like this, it keeps your feet on the ground. It keeps you humble. It keeps you appreciative of small things like eating breakfast in the morning or, having kids that are healthy, things that I think everybody says, well, that's the baseline. That's where everybody should have. Well, yeah, it'd be nice, but it's not how it is for many people. So, it's been great. As far as the book goes, that was just a really cool, that was just so cool how it came about. When I got hurt in a playoff game up in Minnesota, Minnesota fans ended up, through a series of events, ended up donating like hundreds of thousands of dollars to our foundation. And one of the people I interviewed with at the Super Bowl was Sean Jensen. And man, we just hit it off. We shared a similar faith background, and we just, we were supposed to have a 10-minute call, and it was like 45 minutes. And we stayed in touch, and he sent me a few of his middle school rule books. I think the ones he sent me was on Charles Peanut Tillman, Jamal Charles, Skylar Diggins, Brian Urlacher, and he asked me what I thought about him, and I said, "Man, these are really cool. Like, my kids are enjoying them." He said, "Well, I want you to be the next subject," and I was like, "Hold on, what's your goal here? Are you like actually trying to sell books? I'm a punter in a small market." And he was like, "Dude, you got a lot of people that have followed you, and I think it would be a great message, and you have a unique story relative to the rest of these guys that would be different." And so that was a really cool thing to put that together. So many people in the backdrop of that book that didn't know the little things that they did for me, the little encouragements they gave me as a youngster, that how impactful they were, and they're embedded in my mind. And that was really cool to like go back and have all those interviews with all those different people that made such a big impact on me. So anyways, we had a probably a less than desirable time to release the book, because we couldn't go out and do any book signings or things like that with coronavirus going on. But we've got a big old shipment of them at the house. So once we start being able to do things like that, we'll definitely be getting out and about. But it was a special thing to be able to do that.
Well, I have a couple of mine on the way that I've ordered from Target.
Cool.
So I'll be doing a giveaway for people that are listening to the podcast to make sure that they support you, support your mission, support your foundation, and hopefully people will pick up some of the things that we're putting down, which is helping other people just because we feel like it's an obligation.
Yeah. And look, I think anybody that gets a chance to read the book or check it out, it's not just for kids. It's really for the parents of those kids to read with their kids, to understand how important you are to your kids. My parents are the most supportive people I could have ever imagined. And that wasn't the goal of the book, but when the book came out and we had the final draft, I had so many people say, "Wow, your parents." And I think that's a really cool thing that wasn't intended. That's kind of a very special that they understand. And I think they already knew, but it was very cool how the book turned out. And I think parents, it highlights how vital you are to your children. And pressure's on. Now it's my turn to try to do that for my kids.
Well, that's the second time and the second straight episode where someone talked about the importance of parenting. Lee Steinberg, who is the agent for Patrick Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoa, however you say his name, and Troy Aikman, the list goes on. He talked about how important his father was to him and how they instilled values. And so, parents that are listening, when you have an opportunity to pick up this book, when you have an opportunity to really, listen to a story from an NFL punter and the perspective that you've had, it's super important. And it's a privilege that you get to be a parent. And I think you can file under your actions what you give to your kids. It'll make them grow. It'll make you grow, and make all the people around you grow. Thomas Morstead, he is the punter for the New Orleans Saints. He is the onside kick specialist, and he is the second oldest player on the roster. Thank you so much for joining the Simple Kicking Show. We'll got to get you back in the special teams lounge again sometime down the road.
I would love to do it. This was awesome. Suggestion for future podcasts. I think once you get enough clientele in there over time, doing a double Zoom with some of your connected people, double interview at the same time, and be able to fly on the wall. I'd love to get on with DeChambeau. That'd be pretty cool.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Absolutely.
Seriously, I mean, dude, I've reached out to probably 500 to 1,000 people over the last 6 months since I lost my job full time. I was in the oil and gas business, and so this became my full-time gig. And I really am grateful that you have supported me and just been supported me in the sense of responding to my Instagram DMs.
Hey, look, you know what you're doing right now? You're providing value to a ton of people. And so when you provide value, you're going to get value. And so this is honestly, like I said, I can feel how much you love doing this. I can feel the juice. You definitely had to persist with me for a little bit. I'm busy with my kids and all that. And it's been a crazy year for us, for everybody, but I'm glad to do it. And seriously, I'd love to do it again. You just let me know and I'll be here.
If you enjoyed the content, man, drop a like, comment, or even subscribe. It would be really cool to hear from you. Also, you can find Simple Kicking on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and even TikTok.